Good evening, Industry Explorers. Welcome to another episode of our Industry Explorers Start Your Career In series, where we invite guests to give you advice on how to start your career in various jobs. Today, we've got Dwayne Douglas, who is an executive producer, game designer, and artist. Dwayne Douglas attended the oh gosh, you gotta help me again.
Nahman.
Here, I'm going to put it up right here. He graduated from the Nahman School of Visual Effects in Hollywood, California, and was lead designer and animator on Action Half-Life from Beta 3 on and Action Unreal Tournament. Today, we are joined by a veteran video game designer who is skilled in game design, combat design, game art principles, animation, Unreal 4, and audio engineering. Dwayne Douglas is going to speak to us on his experience in the indie game development community and how to figure out where to start a career in game development. How are you today, Dwayne? It's good to have you back.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back. I'm doing all right.
Nice. So I am very excited. Guys, I want to let you know that this is a live stream. So if you leave a comment on YouTube or you leave a comment on Facebook, wherever you're watching this, you can ask your question live and Dwayne will answer it for you right here, right now. That is the beauty. That is as best he can. And that is the beauty of these live streams. So make sure you subscribe to Industry Explorers and let's get on to it. Now, Dwayne, can you start by telling us how exactly does the industry work?
I mean, it's very, if you work in entertainment, it's very similar. There's a lot of pre-production and then you go into, except it's not called production, it's like development, but you go into development or production, they're kind of the same thing. And you work on the game. The life cycle of a game is a lot, or the life cycle of development is a lot longer than most projects, even films, because working on a game could take years sometimes. Like Cyberpunk 2077 that just came out, I'm sure everybody's heard of that. That was like a 7-year long development cycle. And
it's still really buggy.
Yeah, that's because they were reaching very, very high. But and that's the nature of this thing. You're trying to do things that have never been done before, and you're gonna have issues. You know, it's like a new ride at Disneyland. They're buggy at first, and then after years, then they get.
And that's so funny because one of the newer rides at Disneyland before everything closed down is that the Star Wars one.
Rise of the Resistance.
Yeah, there's 2 of them, and they use game engines so that the people who are visiting the parks, the guests, can actually interact with the ride and with the screen at the same time, which is something that hasn't really been done before, has it? But that's what video games use, is they use those game engines to make that interactivity function, right? And I remember the first time riding one of those rides, and it was buggy. It like the screen was skipping a little bit, and I was like, really, Disney, come on. And
yeah, but within probably a fairly short amount of time, they got that dialed in. Some rides, like I remember Indiana Jones, would break down all the time, and then it stopped breaking down on a regular basis. So but, video games can be like that too. But yeah, they have a really long development cycle, and then they actually, unlike movies and television and stuff, they have a short lifespan as a product.
Mm-hmm.
Some games can live on for decades afterwards, like Super Mario Brothers. People play that today, even though that's a 35-year-old or whatever game. But most games, they're around for a couple of years, maybe a year, and then they're gone. And there's not really a way to enjoy them again.
Yeah.
So it is definitely kind of an interesting industry.
So when someone has an idea for a game, like, what is the process? I mean, I'm thinking about the film industry, right? And someone has an idea for a script. So they take it to the studio, they try to get it approved. If it gets approved, then the producers throw a bunch of money at it. They find directors and they find the technical team, and they, do a bunch of planning, and then there's the scheduling, and then they go and do their shoots, and they get they're in production, and then they go and edit everything, and then they test it in front of an audience. So how similar is the video game industry?
The beginning part's not so similar, because usually it's like a studio and they may have a publisher. They don't really take pitches, because the process of a game design is much more involved. You'll create something like a game design document will be created, which will pretty much cover every aspect of the game, not the story narrative necessarily, but how the game functions and how it works. And it's a living document that over development will change, and features and stuff will be added or cut out depending. Because sometimes you'll start working on a game and you'll prototype something, in a really simple way, and you realize that the goal you were looking for was not the one that ends up being in the game, because you found something else that ended up being fun, and you cut this one little piece out or whatever. So there's definitely similarities, but it's definitely not 100% analogous.
So in pre-production, we've got like the concept of the game, the idea. So whether it's an indie game and you've got a group of friends who come up with this idea for a game, or it's a AAA studio who says, I honestly don't even know how it works, I'm just making it up. So maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, don't quote me. You've got a AAA studio that's like, how are we going to make money in 2022? Or how are we going to make money in 2025? Like, what's cutting edge technology? How are we going to push our limits? What's trending right now? What are people going to be interested in? Let's make this game happen so that we can, see a big ROI, a return on investment. Let's
that's
make our stakeholders money. So
that's
there's the
accurate
game concept. So you've got the game concept, and you said that there's then the game design document. Can you describe that documentation?
Yeah, it's literally just how the game works. It's a description of all of the systems within the game, how they interact with each other, as detailed as possible. I've written a couple, some incredibly detailed, so hopefully you could hand the thing off, have somebody read it, and they'll understand what it's like to play your game, even though they don't have it in front of them. So it's that detailed.
Gotcha. How is that different from a macro design document?
I think they would be similar. They just are, have more specific functions. But yeah, they're definitely very similar.
Okay. And so the game design document, is that going to be within like a project scope breakdown?
Yeah. So within an individual project, it will be, the title of the game that you're making, and then it'll start off with you describing, like, you turn the game on and what happens. You have a screen, this plays, that happens, this menu pops up, you click on this button on the menu, what pops up, this, and it's just a description on down. Then you get into the gameplay, like you're running and shooting, or you're jumping or you're clicking on soldiers to make them move from one part of the map, or depending on what type of game it is. It doesn't tend to have story elements in it. That'll be done in a script or a story Bible. So you'll have like a description. So it really is, the game design document is really more about the gameplay, although there will be, obviously, because if you're telling a story, and games don't require a story, but if you are telling a story, there will be elements of the story in there, but only as it pertains to the game mechanics and the gameplay.
I feel like this is like what came first, the chicken or the egg? What comes first, the gameplay or the story?
It depends. It really depends. Some things start as a gameplay story. Like I was watching a video about a game, and I'm gonna totally forget it, but I'll post it later. But it started out as this guy trying to make a stealth game where you like kind of slide along walls. And when you get to like a bad guy, you can kind of grab them and then use them as like a human shield and throw them. And he realized that the throwing of the guy was more fun than the sneaking around. And so he ended up turning the game into, you're a big giant gorilla and you grab bad guys and hold them when people are shooting at you as human shields. And then you throw the body at the guys that's shooting at you. So it went from a stealth game to a guerrilla game. So the story wasn't really even a part of it at all. It totally changed because the gameplay changed, because he realized as he was prototyping that it was way more fun to throw people as a gorilla than it was to sneak around.
And see, that was actually my next question is that something that game developers would learn during the prototype phase?
Yeah, a lot of times. Yeah. And prototype is exactly that. You take a couple of really basic, gameplay systems you want to create. Some are pretty standard, running and shooting in a first person shooter. Those are so standard that if you were to download Unity or Unreal, They have templates that are basically first-person shooter template. You can start adding stuff on top of that. So those are basic. But when you start adding other systems in there, yeah, you might want to test those out. And the way you do that is through prototyping. That's what a game designer does. Is a lot of times, especially the associate or mid-level designers, they'll take one piece of the system and prototype it. So you need some programming or scripting knowledge on how to do that.
Sorry,
that's okay.
the questions are coming up, and hey guys, if you're watching this, just remember, if you leave a comment, you can ask your questions, leave comments, and Dwayne will answer live.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes this a lot of fun. So, but until then, I've got a question. Scripting and programming, what languages would someone need to learn, or what scripting languages should someone learn that would help them as a game designer or a game developer?
Well, it depends. If you're using Unity, you'll want to learn C#. If you're using Unreal, it's C++. There's game engines that use Java, and they all are kind of similar. So if you get one thing, if you want to get a job in this industry, even if you're doing art, it would behoove you to actually learn at least a little bit of programming. So have a basic understanding of how that works, because it will definitely help. But they also have individual scripting languages. Like Unreal has what they call Blueprint, and that looks like it's a visual scripting language that they came up with, and a lot of other engines have it too. And I know Lumberjack, which is the engine that Amazon makes, has that as well. I'm gonna pull something up here.
I heard that Java was, like, if you're going to learn a scripting language, Java is a good one to start with. Is that true?
Yeah, from what I understand, it's fairly easy to learn, but for my money, to jump right into the hard stuff. But that's me. I also start playing games on the hard levels. So
yeah.
So that may not be, if you don't understand the fundamentals of programming, that might be a good way to learn that. Or really jump in, grab Unity or grab Unreal and learn their visual scripting languages. If you have no understanding whatsoever of C++, which is all text-based, or C# or Java, Blueprints, and there's a ton of tutorials out there that'll show you how to do it. Blueprints can absolutely kind of teach you, because it's using the same logic that C++ uses, or C#, without the same, but it doesn't. So it's doing it in the background, like it's a visual version of a regular scripting language.
I've also heard of Python.
Yeah,
and
Python's another one.
Python's a good one, right? Isn't that? And correct me if I'm wrong. Python is like used on Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're watching this and you want to like get started with a programming language, Java, we've heard, is somewhat easy to learn. I think I need to dive into this now at this point, but you can also buy Raspberry Pi products, and you can go through their tutorials, and it teaches you how to code in Python. And then there's also like a lot of membership-based programs out there, like websites that you can go to, like Code Academy. I think there's also one like She Codes, or something to do with women, which I mean, you don't have to be a woman to go to that site, but it teaches you how to do these, how to script these programming languages. So yeah, that's a good place to start. And how come it's good? Even if someone were to be an animator, or if someone were to be a graphic artist, or someone who does the character development, would it still behoove them to learn some basic programming, and why?
Mostly because you're going to be dealing and talking to people on a level dealing with those things. So even if you're not actually doing the work, being able to understand and talk to it, it just makes you more valuable as an employee. That's why. And there are things where you're strictly an animator and that's all you do, and you don't necessarily need to learn those things. But if you want a little bit of a competitive edge, when you do start looking for a job. That's absolutely something. And I mean, there's jobs that are literally technical animators where they are writing scripting in Python to make tools in Maya to better the animation pipeline. So it would definitely help. But like I said, it's not necessary depending on what you're doing. If you're an audio engineer, you don't need to do that. But there are technical audio engineers that write plugins and do coding and audio. So if you can add that on top of it, that just makes you that much more valuable.
Nice. Super awesome. Can you describe the difference between gameplay mechanics and gameplay features, and who are the ones involved in figuring that out?
Gameplay mechanics, well, features, they're kind of the same thing. Features is the way you talk about a gameplay mechanic with the audience. Mechanics are what's going on under the hood. So it is the, press this button, you jump, and when you jump, if you press it again, you can do a second jump. But that would be an example of a gameplay mechanic, double jump or something like that. Shooting, hitting people with melee weapons, that sort of thing. That's all. Or interacting with an NPC player to get something that they need. Those are all gameplay mechanics, and those put a bunch of mechanics together and they make a system, a gameplay system, which would be something like, in an RPG, a role-playing game, it would be like a progression system where as you earn experience points, you unlock powers. That's like a whole system. But yeah.
So go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say that everything that we're talking about right now with the project scope, the game mechanics, the gameplay features, like all these concepts, and the game design document that people have to write, and even prototyping. These are all things that happen in pre-production for a game.
Yeah, I would say prototyping, you're kind of probably into development by then. But yeah, absolutely.
So here's a question that we just got. Have you looked into CG Master Academy or taken any of the classes?
I have not. CG Master Academy, I honestly haven't heard of it, but I'll look it up.
That'd be great for all of us to look up. I'm going to look it up afterwards. Thank you so much, Kaylin. Awesome. So could you talk about a little bit about the prototype aspect of pre-production? It's kind of like you were describing, it's for the game designers and developers to find the most enjoyable and unenjoyable aspects of game mechanics and function.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. You're looking for you're looking for small little bits of the game that you put together just to test out.
Mm-hmm. So since it's pre-production, it's not like at this point in the game, it's really early on in the video game's life. Yes. So it's not like we have a full story at this point. It's not like we have any animation. It's not like we have full map layouts or anything like that. So
you might have different elements of that. Like a map layout may be a bunch of blocks that represent buildings. So instead of being really intricate and artful, it'll literally be a big square block, and its street will be a big. Actually, let me share my screen. I can show you something that I was working on for my game, which is the character movement.
Absolutely.
So you can kind of see what that looks like in a prototype. Where's share screen? There we go. Share screen. All right. I don't think I need to share audio, but just in case.
All
so
right.
You get this. So here, this is me playing in the editor. This is me testing the main characters in my game. And then this is bad guy. But you can see this is a pretty basic level. There's weapons put out so I can pick them up and I can shoot them. And then you can see how basic these shapes are just to test out different mechanics. In this case, it's to both test out.
I don't think it's actually showing the video, at least not on my end. I can see any movement, but is this...
Well, let me see.
Yeah, but if you guys want to see what Dwayne is working on. He actually has, he's working on a project called Killing, My Friend. Killing My Friend. If you go look up Hardboiled Software, they have a website here at www.hard-boiledsoftware.com. And that's where you can see the game that they're working on, which is Killing My Friend. And if you go to YouTube, you can look up, it's Odd Job 1138 is your YouTube channel, or is it Dwayne Douglas? So Odd Job 1138 is the YouTube channel. And in fact, I've shared it on Industry Explorers somewhere. I'll reshare it again after this live stream. But then you can see what his what the game looks like. And it's just like a little bit of gameplay, right?
Yeah, it's actually a level design demo reel that I put together of all the levels that I created. But I didn't necessarily make everything you see on the screen, but all the animations for the characters running around.
Let's see. Maybe I can share my screen.
Yeah, I don't know why.
We'll try this. We'll try this.
Yeah, that's cool. And then Kaylin's got a question, which I can answer.
Go right ahead. Here, I'll put it up on the screen so that everybody watching can see. I'm interested in doing lighting for video games. Do you have any suggestions as to where to start? Awesome question.
Yeah, that is an awesome question. Research on your own. Definitely, there's a lot of information out there that you can find. Oh, that's the game. Yeah, that you can watch that. That's I know most about the Unreal Engine because that's what I use to make this. So I would say go into unreal.com, and they have literally tutorials about how to make how to do lighting in video games, and you'll find a lot of similarities. If you do lighting in a lot of the concepts and ideas that you do in theater and film are going to be, especially theater. I think theater actually applies better than that, because film, you're lighting for a camera. This, you're trying to make it look nice.
Make it look realistic.
Yeah, make it look realistic.
So I've got the trailer playing in front of us right now. Is this what the prototype looks like?
No, this is me. This is a trailer trying to get backing on what do you call it? Indiegogo.
Indiegogo. Got it. That's
you can see that it's very much a action movie shooter where he's diving around and shooting. But I did all those animations. I made this map that you're looking at here, which is like the Hollywood, and this one, Long Beach.
I love it. I used to live in California, so like seeing your maps right now it's like, oh, it's home. Although I don't know what this airport looking one is.
This is actually supposed to be Hong Kong. That's
okay.
A tea house in Hong Kong.
Gotcha. So Kaylin asked a really great question, and I think that's like a really good segue into where should I start? We talked a little bit about learning programming languages, and we talked about how even if you're going to be an artist, it would help you to practice that a little bit and to learn some of the basics of coding, because it makes you a better communicator amongst the different departments you may work in or work with when you're developing a game. And you, Dwayne, you also went to the Nahman School of Visual Effects, which has a really killer website, by the way, like super impressive graphics. So if anybody,
although I went there in 1999 in their first class when they were they were in the old Technicolor building. I think they're still there, but they've moved in. Instead of being in like one floor, they've taken over entire multiple buildings because they've grown a lot.
So let's talk about like different ways for people to start. We've already talked about programming and scripting. So what are some of the other aspects of game design, and like how would someone increase their education, and how would someone get into the industry?
If you're starting out in your life and you're just out of high school, find a good program. There's quite a few. Do your research. I'm not sure which ones are the best. I don't think you necessarily need to go to the most expensive art school or to USC. But But do your research, because I don't have those particular answers, but that is definitely the best way if you're starting out in your career. If you're in the middle of it and you want to add to skills you already have, seek out stuff like you mentioned earlier, like Coursera and or this. I looked at the CGMA is definitely a place where you could learn the skills. And then the engines themselves, Unreal and has their Unreal Learning. So if you go to unrealengine.com and you look under learning and support, there's whole courses you could take that are free, completely free, that'll get you started on stuff like lighting or animation in that system. And I would be willing to bet, again, I'm a little, I'm looking up Unity. I would be willing to bet that Unity has similar, since they're and the other industry standard. So they have their own learning.
Mm-hmm.
Between those, you can get those skills, and then you put some time into it, especially if you find yourself you're not at work and you're looking for work. Between looking for work and you're getting skills, you can absolutely do it. And then there's things like, although I in the pandemic, I am going to guess that they're probably a little bit different, but there's things like game jams where you can get together and they will make games in like, a day or two over the course of like in an event. And it's just a matter of like just prototyping and working together with the team, but you get experience doing that. If you look up game jams, you'll see what I mean. There's like a ton there. There was a ton out there, but they tended to be in-person things. I honestly don't know how they're working in the COVID era, but I'm positive that they're still happening that way. I mean, when I was making my game, Action Half-Life, that was literally all online. We had people in Germany and Finland and like all over the United States, Australia, all working on this game at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And this was like, circa 1999, 2000, 2005, in that era, before things had really solidified on communicating online like they have today, where it's a lot.
Yeah, I was just thinking that sounds like it's before Zoom, or at least before Zoom was really popular.
Before YouTube existed.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe I'm older than YouTube. Sorry.
What was I going to say? I'll put a guy from that era posted this really great story about him working on his mod.
Mm-hmm.
And so a peer of mine from back in the day, I talked to him a little bit and said, thanks for posting that, because I don't have much documentation from that era. But I'll post that after this is over. Just if you want to read it, it's a really fascinating read about what it took to make a game back then, because it was the Wild Wild West. People were writing their own tools from scratch.
I would love for you to share it on our Industry Explorers page.
Yeah.
And I will make a document with all of these different courses. I'll make a really nice graphic for everybody after this. And then y'all can then it's in your hands and it's up to you to go learn a bunch of different stuff. So let's talk about like the production aspect of making a game come to life. That's the time where you're really balancing creativity with time management. When you enter the production phase, are you given a deadline for when the game has to be available to the public?
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you're working for a studio, you're going to be working under a deadline just like any other industry. And those deadlines often have detrimental effect on the game. Years ago, the mantra for when a game was scheduled to come out would be when it's done. Mm-hmm. And that went away as it became a little bit more corporate and a little bit bigger. And they had, you had to meet your Christmas deadline, or whatever the deadline is. And sometimes the games aren't ready. And, going back to talking about Cyberpunk 2077, they were under a deadline and they had to meet it, and they ended up shoveling out a game that wasn't quite ready yet. It'll be there, but not those first few weeks.
Yeah.
It's because your priority should be making a good, solid game, but oftentimes you're subject to other priorities.
So So I want to bring up Cyberpunk 2077 a little bit later
Sure.
in the post-production part of this whole journey. But the video that we played on YouTube of killing my friend, is that a vertical slice?
You could call it that. Yeah, I think that would be an accurate way to see it, because you're seeing the game as the state it was then, and that's from a couple of years ago. Since then, it would actually look different. A lot of it would look different.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of like a vertical slice of the game at that moment.
It's just enough to be a representation of how the game should look and sound and feel.
Yeah, people will understand. Like if you know games and you watch that, you know what the game's about. You can kind of infer a lot of information from that video.
Gotcha. So then you've got the vertical slice. You get your funding. Funding if you're not if you are an indie game developer. Studios they've already got a whole other system of how the money flows in, right? It's from the other games produced by that studio.
Absolutely.
Once they're done with a new game, they're working on the next one to increase that cash flow. So you're an indie game developer. You've got your vertical slice. You're getting funding from Indiegogo. Then you go into pre-alpha. So can you talk to us about the pre-alpha stage?
Yeah, pre-alpha stage is a stage of the game where you want to start like really testing it and doing live testing on a constant basis. The game is by and large what it's going to be. There may be some features that are missing here and there, but the core of the game itself and most of the work that needs to be done has been done. So you might be in pre-alpha for depending on your budget and the size of your team, it might be for months, not years. So that's definitely far down the development, and then from pre-alpha you go into beta, and that's usually when you start inviting other players to test it, people that aren't part of your team. You might have some in pre-alpha, but to test it and really get in there and because you'd be surprised at how many things like you design something and you don't realize until somebody else gets their hands on it. They're like, oh, I didn't even know my game could do that. And it becomes like this major feature. Oh yeah, it happens all the time.
Oh, that's so weird.
It's called emergent gameplay.
Emergent gameplay.
Yeah,
that's
where you put a bunch of systems together and you some games are literally based on emergent gameplay. You put a bunch of systems together that don't really have any rules or a point to it, and people make their own game out of this. Like Minecraft's like that, often, pretty much. It's definitely very much subject to emergent gameplay because there's a lot of people that play it in a lot of different ways. There's people that use it just to make art.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
and that's so that's a good example of it that everybody would understand. But
what are some of the job roles involved in the alpha stage? In the pre-alpha or alpha stage?
Pretty much all of them. You have game producers that are the ones worried about the schedule and making sure things are happening on time, and you have game designers that are worried about prototyping and polishing the systems and making sure they work together. You have programmers that are making it all happen and work. You have artists, level designers that are creating the world you're living in. Character artists that are making the characters, and again, it kind of depends on the style of game. If it's a 2D pixel artist, you're going to have a pixel artist instead of a 3-dimensional artist, but the roles are kind of the same. And then you have sound design, which oftentimes it happens way at the end and probably should happen sooner, because one of the things like a game designer is worried about is what they call feedback, which is when you do something in a game, you should have feedback that you did it. Like you shoot a gun, you should see a mark hit on the wall, a little thing, and you should hear a noise and all that stuff. And
not like a feedback loop, not the from a microphone, but like
you want to know you did something because it's important for the gamer, because otherwise it won't. There's a feel to playing a game, and if you play a game like it just didn't feel very good, you maybe won't be able to put your finger on what the problem was, but you'll know what it is. But that's why, like all those things, same thing with lighting.
Well, and going back to sound design, that's a really important feature in a game like Overwatch, where a lot of players are listening in order to play the game.
Yeah, in fact, my game Action Half-Life, one of the special piece of equipment you could get where we called slippers, which made it so you had no footstep sounds. Yeah, I can't talk. Footsteps. And because that's like a bonus, is being able to sneak up behind somebody they can't hear you. Yeah, it's like.
My brother and I used to play Left 4 Dead, and the best sound in that game is the witch.
Oh yeah, when you hear it before you see her.
Yeah, because you hear the and then you're like, oh God, where is she? And it's dark, and you're like, turn your lights off. Don't scare her. Sneak up on her.
We got to sneak past her without pissing her off.
Yeah. So sound design super important, and and then there's the whole lighting design and the people who are. Would it be considered a lighting animator? What would you call that?
It would be a lighting designer.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that role is usually contained within the level design, unless it's a bigger studio. A lot of them will have lighting design as a separate thing. So one guy's making the world and laying it out and making it work, and another guy will come in and populate it with all the little things to make it decorated and look nice, and then another guy will come in and take this kind of plain looking world and make it look amazing with the lighting. But sometimes that role is all compacted into one person. It just depends on the size of the team and how big the budget is. Definitely.
So what should you, if you want to, another question. If you are working for a larger, like a AAA studio, and would a character designer or a character artist be different from a character animator? And
Absolutely.
Is the character animator, that'd be the rigger, right? Different, like not entertainment rigger, different kind of rigging. We're talking like animation rigging.
Yeah, well, actually, those could be also 3 different roles. You have a character designer that's making the character. They'll make a really super high-res character with millions of triangles that's really detailed, and then they reduce that down to something that a game engine can put on the screen and run around with, like multiples on the screen. So they basically reduce the resolution. There's a whole process to do that. Then you have riggers that what they're doing is they're attaching that character to a skeleton that all the animation is driven onto. And the skeleton moves the character. But so rigging is basically saying like, okay, I have this elbow here. You have a bone here and a bone here. This part of the arm should all be controlled by this bone. This part of the arm should all be controlled by this bone. This should be a little bit of this bone, a little bit of this bone, and it's about painting that nice. So when you get the movement, the arm bends the right way and it looks correctly. That's what a rigger does, among other things. And then they add controls so you can like move the hand and set it where you need to. And then you have animators that just take what the rigger did and the character artist did, which are now together in one product, one thing, and they make it move and breathe life into it. So those are 3 projects. Three in a big studio. Those are 3 separate roles.
Would something like animating or rigging a face be more difficult than anything else? Because I feel like in older video games, like the face just looks like, wow. Like it's not very
some of them are
detailed.
just like, Well, it depends. There's different ways to do facial animation. There are stuff where you have rigging, where you have bones. There'll be like a whole bunch of bones, and eyeballs are usually controlled by bones. So there are all these bones. You can just rotate them around. You give them a little control so both eyes are moving at the same time. But sometimes they use what's called. Sometimes when I'm talking in a situation like this, my brain completely forgets what I'm talking about. You have different sculpts. So you have like to make someone talk, you have morph targets. That's what they're called. So you have the face at rest, and then you'll have all the phenomes, which is all the main sounds that you say when you're talking. So like and whatever those sounds are, you'll have you'll sculpt the face, and you'll have you'll say, okay, morph into this one, and you'll label it T, or morph into this one and label it S. So how it looks different, and then you have a little slider that goes from 0 to 1, and it will move the mouse. So it really depends on the game and how it's set up. But there's a whole
Fascinating.
completely different way to do that. Same
So
with all the expressions and
yeah. Here's another question with regards to animation. So you have your gameplay and you have the NPCs that you interact with, or maybe like if it's a multiplayer game, maybe you're interacting with each other. Although usually it's like you're talking to NPCs, the non-player characters.
Yeah.
But then you've got like your cinematic scenes. I think aren't those called cinematics?
Cinematics or cutscenes, either one.
Cinematics, cutscenes. I mean, so if you're working for a AAA studio, are you going to have a separate team working on the cinematics and cutscenes than the ones who are working on the gameplay characters and animation?
Yeah. Those would be completely.
It's so crazy. There's so many different jobs that you can do.
Yeah.
To make a video game come to life. It's incredible.
Yeah, it really is crazy, and and the bigger the studio, the more specialized the role is.
Mm-hmm.
The more specialized you'll be doing one thing, and you'll be really, really good at it. Whereas if you work for a smaller studio, you might have a lot more responsibilities. So you might need to have more knowledge. That's why I said earlier, that would absolutely behoove you to know more. If you're working for Activision, you're an animator, you're probably only going to animate stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're working for a smaller studio, like the studio that made Left 4 Dead, you might be doing multiple things. You might be wearing many hats. And if you're indie, you're going to be doing it all. You name it, I've done it on my game.
Yeah. So then particle effects, if you're again working for a AAA studio, is there going to be a separate animator or a separate animator artist?
They usually call them visual effects artists.
Okay, visual effects artists, because it's not just like sparks flying or like you wave a wand and the spell comes out at the end of the wand. It's also like fire or water or even air particles.
Little dust in the air, and it gets even crazier than that with the newer, more updated engines. It could be crowds. Crowds can be controlled, so you can have crowds controlled by a particle system. So it's driven by.
Oh, wait. So then if you're like a character running through the crowd and then your main character is like interacting with the crowd if
they're being controlled by a
being shoved out of the way.
Yeah, sort of to an extent. Yeah, and if you go look up the Unreal 5 announcement demo, which is the next version of the engine. The engine I work on is 4, but 5, adds a whole bunch of new features. One of the cool things they show is the character goes into this cave and has a flashlight on, and when the flashlight shines on the floor, there's a whole bunch of beetles on the ground, like just crawling around. But as the light gets there, they kind of get out of the way of the light. I mean, that's all being driven by a particle system. But so those are all contained within that same visual effects system.
It's just so beautiful how far we've come.
Yeah,
I'm kind of scrolling. I looked up Unreal Engine 5 on YouTube, and even just the first 3 videos, like just the YouTube thumbnails for them, they're so detailed and they look so beautiful and so realistic. And it's incredible. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got taken away by it.
I just read something just a day or two ago. I saw it on LinkedIn and a couple other places that said kids today now identify more as video games being like their cultural. It basically replaced music as like the most meaningful cultural artifact in their lives.
That's interesting.
So it's literally like teenagers for the last 50 years have identified as music being the thing that defines like their generation.
Their childhood,
And recently they were saying that it's video games, which is like fascinating. But
it is fascinating.
Also, it's things are becoming more complex. Games as art, and some people like to argue that games can't ever be art, and I understand where that argument comes from, but because they can have art in them, but they can't in and of themselves be art because games are games.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Games are systems with a win-loss, and you like this. But I kind of disagree with that, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyways.
Bonus content. Let's do a podcast recording and then we can make that bonus content because it's such a fascinating topic to explore. And we are industry explorers and we are not just learning about how to start your career. We're going to dive deep into these industries. So follow Industry Explorers on YouTube and follow me everywhere so that you can stay updated on all the stuff that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And as far as like what we're doing here, it really is to just give you an idea, or to give anyone that happens to watch this an idea of just how many roles there are, where the business is going. I said on that sound designer interview that the game industry now, like 5, 6, 8 years ago, I forget, but makes more money than the movie industry. And that's only going to grow. Right now, every single studio is upping their production right now because they've all grown during COVID, where everybody else is in the entertainment industry has shrunk because they can't do it. But there's literally people that have probably never played a video game before that went out and bought a PlayStation because they were stuck at home and they didn't have anything else to do.
Right.
And now suddenly they go, oh, this is a whole different world that I didn't realize that I wanted to be a part of.
Yeah, and that's super important too, because if you don't know, like if you're in high school or you just graduated from high school and you're trying to figure out what you want to do, there are markets that are just trending upward. Cybersecurity, web development, app development, video games, like anything involved in the video gaming industry, like all of these industries there's higher and higher demand for people who do these jobs. So if you want like a safe career path, those are the markets that you're going to want to find careers in.
It goes back to what I said earlier. If you want to be successful in life right now, what I would tell any kid is learn to code.
Oh yeah. And because coding, you can do so much with that. It's really stupid how much you could do with it. Like it's ridiculous, but it's so valuable. So going back to the life of a video game, when you're in the alpha stage, at this point, the game is feature complete and playable from start to finish. The controls, functionality, and interface are in their finalized version. And this is where you're polishing the game. This is where we're doing testing and quality assurance. So what does quality assurance look like? And I guess now we're moving into the beta phase. So can you talk a little bit about like what's involved at this point?
Playing it.
That's the best part.
And over and over and over and over again, playing it and playing it and playing it and playing it and playing it, and just trying to break it. And I played one game. I bought Half-Life for $50 in 1998, and it was probably the most efficient $50 I ever spent because I used that program for 7 years, making my own game and playing other people's. But I played my game for literally years and years and years over and over again in all that's different. We kept adding features and we'd polish it, and things would break because Valve would put out an update to the code, and then we'd have to like scramble and fix our code. And there's a saying that a lot of game designers end up hating the game that they made and never play it again because they played it so much during it's just, but you love it, but you're like, I don't need to play it anymore. But I didn't experience that.
Really?
I actually liked playing my game, so I would get on and I'd usually have to like use a different name because everybody knew me by Oddjob, and if I got on, they'd be like, "Hey, bro." But yeah. Anyways, yeah.
So you're trying to break the game. I'm sure. Okay. I am obviously I'm not an avid gamer. So most of my video game experience honestly comes from watching my brother play video games because it's just entertaining.
Sure.
So and
that's why Twitch exists.
Yeah, and you know what? And there's like you can go on YouTube and look up game bugs or whatever. And you'll see like the people that are moving through objects, or they're stuck in an object, or cars are flipping and
Yeah, I just saw one the other
wigging
day
out.
from Jedi Fallen Order, which is a game where you play a young Jedi who survived the purge, and he's getting his powers back. And they patched it to do some other stuff, and somehow broke it so if you jump in the air and then you force pull, you can suddenly fly. You can just keep jumping and force pull, and you can just fly and go all kinds of places that you were never meant to go. So they changed some variable in there, not knowing it was going to break the system way over here.
Yeah.
They changed it over here, and I think they fixed that already. But there's a ton of videos about that. Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff you want to do. In fact,
that's hilarious.
That exact thing happened. I had a YouTuber playing Killing My Friend, and he did that. Because you can dive like you're in the Matrix, and he was able to do that. And then what did he do? I think he hit jump mid dive, and that allowed him to do it again, and he was flying. I was like, how did you do that? And I've never been able to do that. So yeah, those are the kind of things you're trying to break.
I'm a total button masher when it comes to games like Mortal Kombat. So so I can only I don't know if I'd be a really good beta tester or a really bad one, because I would just find all these different combinations and be like, I don't know how, but I'm flying. I'd probably be really bad, right? Because then they'd be like, oh, well, how did you do that? What was the combo? Like, what triggered that? And I'd be like,
well, there's a methodology to it, and it's not unlike troubleshooting anything else. Like if you're trying to troubleshoot an audio system, it's the same methodology. You're just trying to repeat whatever the broken thing was. So yeah. You don't want to just play, but essentially that's what you're doing. And there's, again, depending on the studio, they might have a whole QA team that just plays video games for a living. But those tend to be entry level. So those are just above minimum wage jobs.
Okay,
as you can imagine.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask if is that a way you could break into the industry, is try to get on these quality assurance teams that just beta test the videos? How do you do that? Because maybe I want to do that. That just sounds like a good side hustle.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it never hurts to, if you see one open, apply. They're going to want people that play a lot of video games and know how. So they're going to want gamers. Usually they'll be hiring people that are maybe just out of school or in school in a program, in a game development program at school. Gotcha. And then they also do summer. A lot of the big companies do summer internships. In fact, if you go on the job boards right now, there's a lot of open summer internships at places like Blizzard or Activision, because it's the time of year where they want to get those all filled for the summer. So that's the other way you break into the industry. But yeah, QA is definitely back to one kid that worked with me for a very short time on Killing My Friend ended up getting a job at Blizzard doing that.
Nice.
But his background was programming. So
okay.
Very cool. It also it helps if you understand how games work, you'll be more valuable even in something like a QA position. And once you get your foot in the door, it can, it's like working at Disney, where you start off in stores and then suddenly find yourself doing something more technical because you happen to gain knowledge outside, but know the right people inside, and you can move in. There's people that are in tech services that came from elsewhere and, probably got a leg up because they already worked with the company.
Yeah. And so that's a good point too, right? So if you're not going to get your dream job right out of school. And that's okay, because you work your way up, and no matter what job you're doing, whether it's in the game world or not, you're learning skills. I don't care if you are a cart pusher at, I don't know, like Costco or something. It doesn't matter, because no matter where you are and what you're doing, you're learning different skills. You're learning soft skills. You're learning soft skills for sure, no matter what. And then if you want to learn more technical skills, you want to learn the hard skills, well, then when you have free time, that's the time to go look up these courses and to go take these classes online, or to go to school, you know? So that's my little bit of encouragement.
And again, I it's my quote that I came up with, but you know, I said it last time we talked, but right nowadays, the only barrier to your knowledge to find out anything you want to learn, any skill, is your own will to do it.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. You may not have the piece of paper that the bachelor's degree or something that a lot of people require, but a lot of times, even though they list those requirements for a bachelor's degree on the website, that doesn't necessarily mean it, because you can make up for it with work experience. That's acceptable too. Now, I'm not saying don't go to college, but it's not necessary in every situation.
Yeah, even if you're not in college, or you are currently enrolled in a program, you don't have to wait to get that degree in order to apply for jobs. You can apply for jobs whenever. It doesn't matter. The worst that's going to happen is they say, not right now, not yet. We'll keep your resume on file. And then you wait a year, a year or two, and then you reapply somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and then some stuff like Caitlin was asking about lighting, your demo reel is going to be more important than, your body of work is going to be more important than your certificates.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you are building stuff in your free time or in a program, even if it's a classroom assignment, or if it's something that you've made your hobby, build that portfolio. Just keep on building it. That's something that we talked about when we were talking about video game sound design, is building the audio or the sound design portfolio. So yeah, definitely, no matter what you're doing, keep building that portfolio, keep building your skills. It's all about your will to do these things.
Yeah, and again, I keep seeing it because the question's up, but Kaylin's question about lighting, when it comes to building a demo, there are so many free environments out there on Unreal, if you wanted to learn it there, that you don't have to worry about. You can just concentrate on the one thing you want to concentrate on. You can concentrate on learning just lighting and become valuable in that. And, if you get a really good handle on it and you understand, it's not as simple as placing the lights and setting the levels and stuff. There's things you have to worry about with optimization, so it can run well on systems. Like if you have a lot of moving lights, that takes a lot of calculation and it could make your frame rate drop. So you have to understand, there's more to just learning it. But if you understand color theory and lighting in general, those same skills you have already in lighting will absolutely be something that those kids that know how to optimize will have to learn. Whereas you're learning the other side of it.
Right.
I mean?
It's still a great foundation when it comes to getting into this industry.
And then you might find, you start playing around with it and you're like, oh, I could do this too. And then you go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. It's just really quick story. I went to college I went to Cal State University Fullerton for theater, and I was studying technical production and design. And I was a sophomore or junior when one of my professors asked me if I had applied for Disney, the Disneyland Resort. And I'm like, no, I thought you did that after you graduated. And he goes, well, why not? Why haven't you applied? And I was like, okay. So I applied, and it was maybe 3 or 6 months before I got hired, before they called me and said, hey, we'd like to bring you on board, which is I was so happy that day. I'm not even going to lie.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, I mean, and when I started at Disney, I was a junior in college and I was 20 years old. So you don't have to wait until you graduate. And even if you're told no or not yet, you can always reapply, and you can always apply to other places. So that's just my little story for people. And I got 2 more comments that came in. Kaylin is celebrating, and he said, was it Bill? Yes, it was Bill Meyer, is my professor who told me that. Shout out to Professor Meyer. Actually, we never called him professor. That was the interesting thing about the theater department, is you grow up And you expect college to be like, oh, hello, Dr.
Yeah.
So-and-so, hello, Professor so-and-so. And then you get to the theater program and they're just like, yeah, call me Bill.
Yeah. I had the
Not
same.
even William? Bill? Okay. Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
Hey, Fred. Hey, oh my gosh, all my Dave and there's all my professors. Like that was interesting. So anyway, tangent. So the beta phase, bugs are prioritized from high, which are game breaking and quality offending, to low, which are minor annoyances. The bugs get fixed. The project is stabilized and optimized, like you were describing earlier. Then we reach the gold phase of production, which is the basically that's when the game is ready to be sent to the public, published.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's called gold because they used to actually make gold copies of the disc before they duplicate it. So you'd actually have the disc or the cartridge or whatever, that was gold, because they would actually have the installer and everything that the way it was going to be when it got to the public. That means it was the final. Nowadays, everything's digital. You can still go buy copies of games, but I don't know why you would do that, because then you'd have to get up off your ass to change the game.
Okay, I'm not even gonna lie. I had no idea gold was because the physical disc was gold before other copies were made. Yeah. And I laugh because go to Microsoft. How do you save your project? You click on the floppy disk. Mm-hmm. I know what a floppy disk is. I've never had to use one. We had them. Like, that's the interesting thing I think about, like, being born in the 90s is you're at like this weird in between where, like, yeah, I know what dial-up sounds like. It sounds like screaming robots. Have I had to use it? No.
Yeah.
We had CD, like my dad has a bunch of cassettes and they had a cassette player, but I use CDs and then quickly MP3s, and then now everything's streamed. So like, I find that hilarious. Gold, the gold phase. It's because the discs were physically gold.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And then, you know, those names stick.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So then now we're in post-production. And
that looks different depending on the game.
Okay.
Some games are what they call like a live service, where they're constantly being updated and there's features being added to it. Something like I've been playing a lot lately with my buddies from work, Fallout 76, which is just that would be considered a live service. So that's just like weekly events and new content added on a regular basis with no extra cost for it. Mm-hmm. You know, like that stuff. But then some games that you're done. Wash your hands, you say goodbye, you go to the next one. It really depends. Or you start working on the DLC, which would be downloadable content. So like a smaller slice of the game with new content, new features. But it really depends. And then, you know, you do a postmortem, see what worked, what didn't. Bug fixing.
Mm-hmm. So more bug fixing. And this is where I wanted to bring up Cyberpunk 2077 again, is because it came out with so many bugs, and I think like there's more updates that come out. You just keep updating your version of the game and then it fixes the bugs. So, and that's part of, well, I guess it's part of the Cyberpunk 2077's post-production process, but is that common to be fixing bugs even after the game is released?
It's become common.
As more games are like streamed.
Yeah, well, not streamed, but as we have the ability to do that, you know, like it used to be, if you had a console game or even a PC game, whatever was in the box is what you had. There was no way you could go download new stuff. You know, like a Nintendo, you can't add anything to your cartridge that you stick in. That's it. So it better work.
Yeah.
So they had higher standards. Standards loosened because they can do that. There's been games that were famously terrible to play. Fallout 76 was awful when it came out. Like, it had a lot of completely game breaking bugs, and there was features missing, and there was all this stuff. And it was or another one that was like really had a terrible first year, No Man's Sky. It's like famous for like promising all this stuff and then not delivering on it.
Yeah.
And they got raked over the coals from it, but they have a really great redemption arc because they spent a lot of time taking that money they earned and made it into a really great game. a year and a half, 2 years later.
So what is a closing kit?
A closing kit? I'm not necessarily familiar with that term.
So I did a little research, and just because I'm super unfamiliar with this industry,
Sure.
but I've learned a ton from the 2 live streams that I've done with you, Dwayne Douglas.
Everybody calls him that. My dad's name's Robert.
Mr. Douglas. No.
Yeah.
So in my little bit of research, the closing kit is where the game's assets are organized, and I guess it would be like stored in a file or something.
Oh, yeah,
and it's
okay.
if the developers want to make a sequel.
Yeah, because you don't want to necessarily have to remake everything from scratch when you're gonna have a lot of the same art. You're gonna want to make a lot of new stuff, but you at least want to go plumb the depths for the original sound effects and for the basics. Because usually, a sequel hopefully will take the original game and it will feel similar, but you'll add on top of it.
And so that kind of reminds me of how some games use the same game engine, but then there are some games where they have their own game engine just dedicated to those games. I think Overwatch has its own dedicated game engine. And then like Zelda, a couple of the Zelda games, like for the Nintendo Switches, I think there's 2 separate Zelda games, but they use the same game engine. Can you talk a little bit about game engines real quick?
Yeah, they're
real quick. That's such a huge topic.
Yeah, that's a huge topic. But yeah, it kind of depends on the game. Like a game like Borderlands, which is a big game. Another one I've been playing recently, so it's in my head. The first game came out 12 years ago, and then the second one came out 3 years later, and then the newest one didn't come out until last year. So there was this huge difference. So they're obviously the first 2, I think, used the same engine, but this last one actually was using Unreal Engine because the old one was so old that it would take a lot of work to update it. But then there's studios like Bethesda who makes Fallout games and Skyrim, the Elder Scroll games, and they have one engine that they've just building on and adding features to. So even though it is technically the same engine, but even then, depending on how close that is, the development of your first game to your next one, sometimes technology changes so much that you really can't use anything but the audio, because the audio. The sound effects aren't going to be that different unless it's, like an old 8-bit game and now you're making a 3D game. But even then, sometimes you want to use those sounds because people expect them, or modernize a sound that sounds familiar. But yeah.
Are creating game mods something that happens post-production?
Yeah, those are things. Those are like they're kind of like fan-made films or like made games. Usually what happens is, like in the case of my game Action Half-Life, what do you call it, Valve actually, they released their game Half-Life, and then they put a bunch of tools out that have certain aspects of the engine available for you to rewrite the code, so you can change it from a sci-fi shooter into we did something more like this, like an action movie shooter. And it really just depends on. Actually, you want to click on the one below that, the one with the red title, so you can see a different video. Yeah, click on that one.
Okay, sweet. There we go.
This is a slightly older video, but it's kind of cool.
So mods.
So mods are usually like, people can make their own version of the game. You change stuff. Sometimes it's as simple as changing, like, I remember playing the original Doom shareware, which is when Doom first came out, the first Doom, the famous one. They had it was a $5 disc that had the first like 3 levels on it. And then to get the rest of the game, you had to pay the rest. Everybody played those first 3. And somebody made a mod where they replaced these one demons with Barney. The purple dinosaur.
Yeah.
So you were running around.
That's so funny.
So that's an example of a mod. But then you have stuff where people have like made, a game like Action Half-Life, which takes this sci-fi shooter and makes it into an action movie shooter, or Counter-Strike sort of does that, which is a really big game that everybody knows, that a buddy of mine made. He made it into a military shooter, and for 20 years has completely changed the face of multiplayer games, but which is kind of amazing to think about that, but yeah, those are something that definitely happen at the assistance of the original game maker. So they put the tools out there so you can do that yourself. In fact, Unreal Games have a way for you to allow people to make mods for your game. Sometimes people do it on their own.
Would making mods or practicing making mods be a good way to build your portfolio?
Absolutely.
Nice. Absolutely. I'm going to type that out.
In fact, I applied for a job at Activision as a level designer, and just the other day, and one of the pluses it said is any mod experience.
Nice. To build.
And sometimes those projects can turn into commercial successes. Like I said, my friend Min and I worked on a game with a whole bunch of other people, but and then when Half-Life came out, he decided to make Counter-Strike, and ended up being purchased by Valve and became the most online played game of all time, and still played to this day. They still have tournaments for the newer versions of that called CS:GO, but Counter-Strike Go. But yeah still.
There's a game. I can't remember the name of it. You may have already said it, but it's kind of like, you're going to hate the way I describe it. It's like this guy in space, but hell has taken over the world, and this guy is fighting hell demons.
That's Doom.
Okay, I thought so. I thought it was Doom. I would make a mod. There's this one enemy in particular. I always call him Pac-Man, because to me, he looks like this one-eyed Pac-Man.
Oh, yeah.
I'd make a mod and replace him with just Pac-Man, or with the green ghost from Ghostbusters. Maybe I'd make a mod like that. Slimer. Yeah, the slime mod.
Yeah, like I said, they could be as simple as that, and sometimes people have made completely entire games out of a mod. And changed literally every single piece of art and code, so it's a completely separate game.
So, do you want to, before we kind of wrap this up, do you want to talk a little bit more about your project, Killing My Friend?
Yeah, I'm still working on it, but it was a night and weekends. If you look at the date on this, is 2015. I'm still working on it.
Yeah,
and you can see this is really early. This this is that same level, but early on, so you can see how different it changed. But
that's a cool move.
Yeah, this is my first trailer I made for it, and I did all the animation. I set this whole thing up.
It looks, the first one that we played during this live stream, the animation looks a little bit better.
Yeah. This was a little bit more. Well, this hasn't really gotten into gameplay either yet. Yeah. This is just telling the story of what the game is.
Right. As a 4-player co-op.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So tell us about Killing My Friend.
So it's a 4-player co-op. So it's you and 3 of your friends trying to survive a crazy director who will use live rounds on set.
Oh so my god!
It's a weird sort of fantasy world where an excuse for a game. So when you kill people, they end up getting up and walking away after the take is over. So instead of rounds, you have takes. You see what comes up when you. Yeah, there you go. Do the level design one.
This is a good one. I do like this one.
So this is kind of the final version of that same level you were just looking at, but that's what it really looks like. You can see
are you guys still on Kickstarter, or are you on Indiegogo?
Both of those didn't. I jumped in on the Indiegogo thing after so many people's failed what do you call it? Indiegogos, where they got them successful and they never came out. Like they reneged on their deal. That the bottom fell out for video games. It's very difficult to make a successful video game crowdfund now, because so many people have defaulted on them. So
I'm still waiting for Psychonauts 2 to come out.
Yeah, so at this point now, I'm just doing it on my own. Like I said, nights and weekends. It's the team's kind of reduced down to me and another guy doing the programming.
Yeah. So if someone were hungry for experience, would you be willing to take them on as a volunteer?
Depending on that, yes, absolutely. Depending on their skill level, but no guarantees.
Right.
It would have to make sense.
For sure. Like, no guarantees, but you guys should follow Doug at oddjob1138 wherever you can find someone on social media, and you can look up Dwayne Douglas on LinkedIn and Facebook and just send him a message.
My pleasure, man.
Who knows? Who knows where it will lead? So thank you for tuning in, Kaylin. It was so awesome having you here. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe.
And check out the post on Facebook later, because I'll post some links to some various things that we talked about today.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Maggot Minded. Great. Thank you for this talk. Oh, you're welcome.
That sounds like a gamer name right there.
For sure. You are absolutely welcome. We'll hang out here for just a little bit longer. If you guys have any last minute questions, feel free to ask them. We're here for you. We want to help you in your journey. So yeah, until then, any last minute words of wisdom before, we'll kind of drag this on a little bit longer, see if we get any more questions come in. But do you have any last minute words of wisdom?
No, I mean, like I said, I'm pretty much self-taught with all this. So everything you see here, not the programming side in this game, but I made this level. I, did the animations you're looking at, created the arms and the guns and all the movement when it's in third person. Made the layout for this level that's kind of based on a James Bond villain type level. And I was all self-taught, and a lot of it, the knowledge is I've gained over the last 5 years working on the Unreal Engine, kind of getting back into it after some time off from the industry. But it's there. It's there, and you don't even need a. This is Unreal Engine. Maggot-minded. But it's there if you want to do it, and you don't even need you can put out a game all by yourself. It doesn't have to be a big elaborate game like this one. It can be a pretty simple one.
Like as simple as Pac-Man.
Yeah, or the modern equivalent of that, whatever that might be. There's very simple games that have come out and done quite well.
Yeah, just whatever's going to show that you have an understanding of how to operate these Unreal Engine or Unity, and just showing that you have, I guess, core concepts of game design and development. Yeah. And really, some of the best games are super simple, right? Look at Candy Crush. Look at Words with Friends, or what's the one where or Suspect. I think that's what. Is it called Suspect, or is it called? Yeah, it's Among Us.
Yeah, Among Us. That was the biggest game of last year. Like literally the most downloaded game of all last year was that one. It happened to hit at the right time, have the right. Some are downloaded assets, some are stuff I modeled. Depends, like the house and the fence. I didn't make the foliage. And it says that under there. So on this level that you're looking at right now, it's a mixture of stuff I made. I made the tennis court. I made.
So where did you download some of these assets, and then what program did you use to build the ones on your own?
I used Maya and Photoshop to build the ones I made, and then when it comes to the assets. Both Unity and Unreal have their own marketplace, so you can buy assets, and there's a lot of free stuff on there too. There's a lot of example stuff. So like I was saying to Caleb, if you want to just try your hand at lighting, there's entire scenes out there that you can just change the lighting on and make it look different from a daytime scene like this. You could take this same scene without, take all the lighting out, put new lighting in, and make it look completely different. Or like this one, you could make this one set during the day with no rain. Like I made the cars on this and the building, but not the subway was an asset that I bought, but I made it look like a 70s beat up one instead of a pristine.
So you can download these assets and make your own modifications to them to fit the style of your game and to fit the function of your game. That's good. That's good to know. Yeah.
So like this whole, I place things in it, myself, but the assets, which means like the models and stuff, were all made by, like this train looks all nice and clean. I dirted it up with graffiti and stuff, and I changed the tile to look like more like a 70s New York City tile.
Yeah.
By going on Google and finding a nice picture and making a texture for it.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Like it's just a PNG file.
That's exactly what it is.
Nice. Gotcha.
So it really depends.
Do you use a similar process for your main character?
The main character, actually, I made the what you're looking at right now, the first person stuff and the guns, but I did not make the characters. I used a program to make that, which is called, back then it was called Mixamo. Now I'm currently using one called Character Creator. As you pay a licensing fee.
How much?
The program itself's like, I don't know, like $1,200.
Like a year, $1,200 a year.
No, it's a purchase, and then you have to get credit.
Oh, okay.
It's required. You put, when you start a game and there's all those little logos on there. Those are the, like Y's, W-I-W-I's. Like this, I made almost everything you're looking at in this room. Nice. Same thing with these lanterns that you're going to see me, like, they're supposed to break, but they're not breaking right now. I don't know why.
So that's like is that something that you would fix in the coding?
Yeah.
Or like, okay.
It's something in the coding.
Oh, okay. That's fascinating. So like you have to have the coding to tell the lamps to break and also the animation to show what it looks like.
It's not even animation. That's actually literally physics. You're saying like you have the piece here and you have a piece down here, and you tell them to have this much play in them and have this much limit to it, and then when you hit it, it'll just move. There's literally physics being calculated on there.
That's fascinating. It is amazing, like how there we go. Dwayne Douglas, level design demo reel, oddjob1138@gmail.com if you want to spam him with your emails. No, I'm just kidding. Don't spam Doug, or don't spam Dwayne. Dude, change your last name.
I know. I got cursed with 2 first names.
Oh.
And my last name, Douglas, I have to constantly tell people that's 2 S's.
Yeah.
That's 2 S's. It's 2 S's.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see the Queen Mary in the background?
I didn't. Now I have to back it up real quick. Oh, go back. I'm looking. Oh, there it is.
You see the dome? That's literally just like a flat. It's like a flat. Because it's so far away from the camera. There's a lot to building out a map that's very much like set design, because like the old theater saying about if it looks good from 20 feet away, it's okay.
Yeah.
You're only worried about the player's perspective. So if you fly around in other parts of it, you'll see the backsides of things like you would if you're in a theater walking by on the set or a movie set. Sometimes stuff's obviously 3D, but when you get out into the outside the play area, it tends to be a lot of movie magic style tricks.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm glad we took some time to, like, first of all, I'm really glad we got to talk about the whole process of the gaming concept all the way through to post-production. And I'm glad we touched on some key words, and we touched on places where you can take courses online, or schools that you can, look into their programs. I'm glad we talked about ways to beef up your portfolio, ways to make you more marketable, ways to help you with your application wherever it is in video game design you're trying to get into. We definitely discussed a lot, but I am super glad that we spent some time, almost a half hour, talking about your game and just the different ways that you made this game come to life. And thank you again, Maggot Minded, for your questions.
Yeah.
Like, you're probably not the only person with these questions. And again, we're here to help you guys on your journey and to help you achieve whatever it is that you set your mind to. That's what Industry Explorers is here to do. So go subscribe to Dwayne Douglas. Go subscribe to Hard Boiled Software. And please subscribe to Industry Explorers if you want to learn more about different industries, or if you want to get more detailed into a particular industry, if you want repeat guests, or if there's an industry or a career that you're curious about and we haven't covered it yet. That's what I'm here to do. That's what we're all about. So feel free to DM me, Siobhan Colleen. I'm more likely to respond on LinkedIn, but I am on Facebook and I am on Instagram and Twitter. And you can also send messages to Industry Explorers. It's just me, guys. I wish I had a whole team to do my marketing for me and do my everything for me. I do have one guy that's been helping me a ton. So shout out to Kevin Burks. Thank you so much for all your help. But yeah, so feel free to message me, message Industry Explorers. And if you're interested in video games specifically, find Dwayne at all the places we told you to find him. So yeah, if we don't have any other questions coming in, I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in and watching. Subscribe to everyone everywhere. It helps us out. And also,
you're doing good work.
Thank you.
You deserve the subscriptions.
Thank you.
I really honestly believe that. I think you're doing good work.
Thank you so much. And you know what? If you subscribe to a channel, or if you click on someone's affiliate link, even if it's not mine, if you are clicking on someone's affiliate link, it helps them, because a small percentage of your purchase goes to their bank account. And why? Okay, so why is that important? It's important because if I want to build something that people can actually use, it costs money to build these things. It costs money to have the StreamYard subscription. It costs money to have my microphone and to have Canva, and anything that I do costs money. So I want to be able to provide more. And the way that I can provide more is if I get the YouTube subscriptions, and if I do have affiliate links in my social media posts. If you're looking to make a purchase on Coursera anyway, you're already set on purchase on doing a subscription, but you see that I have an affiliate link, I would love it if you clicked on that affiliate link, because it helps me out so that I can get more guests and more content. And again, I am just trying to help people figure out what they want to do with their life and figure out the best way to get ahead and thrive. So thank you so much for your time, Dwayne. It was great having you as a guest again.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's been fun, these two.
Yeah, for sure. Well, again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And I know I've said this 1,000 times. Subscribe to Industry Explorers. When we reach 100 subscribers, we will have a giveaway. When we reach 1,000 subscribers, we will have another giveaway. They are rope axis related. And yeah, it's giveaways. I like doing them because it's a way for me to give back to the community. I don't make any money off of giveaways, but if you get a free rope access course, that's a lot of money you're saving. Anyway, yeah. So subscribe. All right, guys. Thank you again. And until next time, I will see you on our next adventure. Take care, explorers.